on. Hello everyone, welcome to this video tutorial on SQL. So in the last class we have discussed about ER diagram. As you remember, in the tree schema architecture it is in the conceptual schema. So whenever we design the ER diagram, the entity that corresponds to, okay, suppose for example this employee is an entity and department is an entity. Suppose after finalizing the ER diagram we can start our coding. Okay, so we can start our implementation. So the implementation we can start in the form of some coding language. So in database management software we will be using structured query language. So for this two entities there will be two tables that can be implemented using structured query language. So let's see how this structured query language can be used to implement the tables in a relational database management system. So SQL stands for structured query language. It is used for storing and managing data in a relational database management system. It is a standard language for relational database systems. It enables users to create, read, update and delete relational databases and tables. And SQL allows us users to query the database in a number of ways using a English-like statement. So whenever after constructing the ER diagram, so whenever we are talking about the entities, we will use the SQL or the structured query language to implement the entities in the form of a tables. Okay, why it is called structured? Because the data that you are going to store in a database should be structured in nature. That means it should have a definite data type. Okay, suppose if you are storing name can have characters and maximum length of a name can be 30 or 50. So these are structured data. So it is known as the structured query language. Okay, so these are the different rules of structured query language. Structured queries language is not case sensitive. Okay, so generally it is case insensitive. So generally keywords of SQL are written in uppercase or capital letters. Using SQL you can perform statements, you can perform most of the actions in a database. So using the SQL statements you can perform most of the things in a database. And SQL depends on the tuple relational calculus and relational algebra. So SQL is deriving from the tuple relational calculus and relational algebra, which we will study later. Fine. So next, see what is the advantages of SQL. The first advantage of SQL is the high speed. So what do you mean by high speed is that using SQL a user can retrieve large amount of data in a very short time. Okay, so you don't have to wait for long amount of time. Using SQL you can retrieve large amount of records from a database in a very short amount of time. Fine. Advantage is no coding needed. So it is very easy to maintain the database using the structured query language. You don't have to write substantial amount of code whenever you are managing the database using structured query language. So no coding is needed for SQL. No vast amount of coding is needed for SQL. SQL is another popular language because of its portability, and that means you can use SQL in laptops, mobile servers or even on mobile phones. So the portability is one of the very most attractive features of SQL. It's the interactive language. SQL is the interactive language, or you can say it is a domain language by which we can communicate directly with the database that we have created using the ER diagram. Okay, so it is the domain language which can be used to communicate directly with the database. And the last one is multiple data view. Using SQL the user can create multiple data views of the same database for different users. Fine. So these are the advantages of database which made SQL to use enormously among the various users. Next we will see what are the different data types that SQL supports. So I told you SQL supports the structured data. That means every data type, the data that you are going to store or the attribute that you are going to store should have a data type. Okay, so the basic data type available for attribute includes the numeric data type, the character string, boolean, date and time. Okay, So the numeric data type, as you can see, includes integer of various sizes and also the floating point numbers of various precision. Okay. The character data consists of a sequence of characters from implementation defined character sets. Both ASCII and EBCDIC are two sets commonly used character string. So data types are either fixed length. In fixed length we will use only character, or it is of variable length, in which we will be using varchar or varchar2. Okay. So the default length of the character string is 1. And when specifying a literal string, it is placed between single question mark and it is case sensitive. Okay. Next you can see Boolean data type has a traditional value of true and false. In SQL, because of the presence of null value, a 3-valued logic is used, so a third possible value for a Boolean type is unknown. Whenever we have to represent null values, we have to use this Boolean data type, which also represent another data type that is unknown. Okay, so these are the basic data type, and apart from this, there is another data type which is commonly used, that is the date time. Okay, the format of date, time and timestamp can be considered as a special type of string. Hence, they can generally be grouped in, can be used in string compared by either being cast into the equivalent strings. Okay. So let's see what is next. So these are the different types of SQL commands. So SQL commands are generally divided into 3 categories. The categories are known as DDL, that used for data definition language, then DML, data manipulation language, and data control language. So all SQL commands are fall under this particular category. Fine. The DDL commands are used to generally used for changing the structure of the table. Like create is used to create a table, drop is used to drop the table, alter can be used to modify alter anything within the structure. So DDL commands are used to change the structure of a table, and these are the examples of some DDL commands like create, drop, alter, truncate. Okay, and you have to remember that DDL commands are all auto commit. That means whatever, if you have execute the commands, it will automatically save all its things permanently in the database. Okay, so next we will see what is data manipulation language. Data manipulation commands are used to manipulate the database. So it is responsible for all the changes in your databases, which may include the example like it may be insert is a data manipulation language command, update, delete. So these are all comes under data manipulation language. And data manipulation language are those languages which are used to modify the database. So it is responsible for all changes in your database. Like the example, insert, delete and update are the examples of data manipulation language. And you have to remember that data manipulation language are not all auto committed. That means whatever changes made by data manipulation language are not saved permanently in the database. So you have to save them manually using the commit command, or you have to you can either, or they can be either roll back to the previous state. So they are not all auto committed statements. Next we will see data control language. Data control language are used to take or give authority to the database users. Okay, so different examples of data control language are grant and revoke. Grant is used to give any specific authority to the user. Okay, so depending on various conditions. So these are the types of SQL statements, commands that are given by SQL. So in the next class we are going to use the this particular commands in our SQL lab classes. Hope you liked the video. Thank you very much.